Welcome back to the Triathlon Weekly News Roundup presented by THEFEED.com. My name's Travis. Today, you read the headline right, we're talking all about Lionel Sanders. He just released his first Kona vlog. I'm sure you're all buzzing like me for that race coming up in a few weeks' time. So we're going to deep dive into him because I was actually writing an article about how his race I think will unfold, and I thought, you know what, let's make that the main topic for this week's video and kick off a Kona series of videos leading up into the race. I am buzzing for this one. I think it's going to be special. Thank you to THEFEED as always for sponsoring this video. Loving some recent products of theirs. Carbs Fuel Gel, 50 grams of carbs in a $2 gel. Awesome. And then Science and Sport protein shake. That's been my go-to. Been feeling great after taking this, training for Lake Las Vegas coming up in a couple weeks. And then Plasmade. I'm trying out Christian Blumenfeld's secret sauce, and yeah, starting that tomorrow. I'll let you know how that goes. But today, like I said, talking Lionel, we're also going to take a look at Ibiza T100 and the T100 Vegas wildcards that were just released, and then also, of course, some news headlines along the way. Let's dive into it. Thanks for joining me. Lionel Sanders. Okay, he said his chances of winning Kona are a long shot. Not my words, those are his words. He said probably 2017 and 2022, where he finished as a runner-up, is probably his best result. But he still wants to have his fullest potential race, which he doesn't think he's had before, where he's able to perform up to his limits, his full human capacity. And he seems so motivated to do this. And he looks like everything he's doing, he's trying to make the best decision. And I really think it's possible. He says that insanity is needed this year for Kona to do well, and especially on the bike. We saw that at Ironman Canada, where he was willing to ride at 330 watts for 3.5 hours, just basically to see if he was capable of doing it. He said he wasn't prepared and he kind of blew up, but still managed to run a pretty decent marathon off of it. But yeah, he just says there's no way you can expect to compete with the likes of Christian if you aren't willing to take risks like they do, because they're pushing the limits of human capability. And we see this again, that they're doing monster workouts before Kona. They just posted on Strava, they did a 180K plus bike ride followed by a marathon, and then followed by big swim afterwards. These guys are nuts and definitely scaring their opponents, but thankfully it looks like Lionel is not copying them this year, and he's really following his own plan. But then what is Lionel's plan? What is his fullest potential race? Well, he has said in this video that he thinks he can swim a low 50, average 310 to 320 watts on the bike, and then break or be around sub 240 for the marathon. So first of all, is that possible for Lionel? Looking at his past results, is he being over optimistic? I don't think so at all. I think it's highly possible. For the swim, we saw him at the Tri Battle swim a 50-58 there. Much more favorable conditions with a wetsuit, no swell chop, but he said he wasn't too impressed with that swim himself and believed he could have done a lot more.
No, I'm not very happy with it. I feel like I actually didn't swim that great on the day.
So definitely possible, I think, on the swim, especially if he has a good set of feet, which he didn't have at that race because Jan was way up. Then he averaged 330 watts, like we said, in Canada, so 310, 320 seems possible. And then at Ironman Florida, Lionel ran a 2:40.42 running alongside Gustav Iden. That was his best Ironman marathon. But can he do them all together in Kona is the big question. Okay, so let's talk about Kona then. His best swim on the island, no wetsuits, remember the chop, the swell, he did a low 52 minutes. So he's got to make quite a jump to get to that 50 minutes. The bike is probably his best bet, we all know that, but it's hard to see him gaining time on those front pack swimmers who are also super strong bikers, the likes of Sam Laidlow. He averaged 311 watts for that 2022 race where he broke the course record. So he definitely can put in that many watts, but I don't think he'll gain time on those guys. Their CVA is probably also better than Lionel from what we've seen in the past, but Lionel has improved that a lot lately. But then onto the run, and this is definitely the biggest challenge for Lionel, especially considering Lake Placid and Ironman Canada, where he's been struggling with nutrition. He hasn't been able to get that right yet. His best run on the island is a 2:51 when he almost won in 2017. So it's been a while since he's put together a good run on the island. And in today's day and age, that would be one of the slowest runs on the island. In 2022, 16 men ran under that time, and Gustav Iden ran a 2:36 to win the race. But with all that said, if he does have his perfect day, if he does manage to pull it off, where would that leave him? And I've broken it up into two scenarios. Scenario one is that he makes the second chase pack swim. That starts him out in the perfect spot, because in 2022, Magnus Ditlev and Christian Hogenhaug were there, and those two Uber bikers with Lionel's current biking prowess would potentially mean he gets a one-way ticket to the front of the race, and that will change everything. And if you're thinking that's pretty far-fetched for Lionel currently, Ben Hoffman in 2022 made this swim pack, and notoriously he swam a lot of the time alongside Lionel in races. It would be quite a stretch for him to make it, but you'd have to imagine this is his goal, and this is his best case scenario, so we have to throw it in there. So then if he's off the bike with those front group, Sam Lalo, let's imagine he's up the road like he was back in 2022, 6 minutes up the road, he's biked super strong as always. Where would he finish? So if he runs a 2:40 marathon from there, he is going to end up where Max Newman did, 4th place, just behind Christian, Sam, and Gustav. That would be incredible, I think. And, you know, if he goes and runs even faster than that, Christian Blumenfeld ran a 2:39, and he would be challenging him for the podium. And I think if Lionel did that, that would be an absolute dream for him. A little bit unlikely, but that's why I've gone with scenario 2 as well. Let's say he gets out of the water in that second chase pack, or just behind that second chase pack in the third pack, and he isn't able to get to the front of the race. This will most likely see him with the other Uber bikers, Cameron Worth, Leon Chevalier, and this still sets him up pretty good, probably better than you'd expect. He was not there in 2022 at all during his really rough day. If he gets off the bike with them and runs a sub 2:40 marathon, it would secure him 5th place and 8 minutes quicker than where Joe Skipper did that year. So still, even in scenario 2, if he doesn't have that luck getting to the front of the race, or say he gets dropped from Magnus Ditlev and Christian Hogenhaug, they surge to get rid of him, he still could secure 5th place, which again, I think he would be really happy with. I think for him, it just matters about having that best day that's possible. But like I said, he's got to nail down that nutrition. Hopefully he hasn't burned himself out like he did in 2022, where he just trained way too hard. It looks like he's got that all dialed in right now, and I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are about him. I think he's got a lot of things going for him this year, especially what he's done with his work on the bike. He's going to be faster than ever. I just hope he gets that nutrition right. But like I said, much more to come on this subject. Huge thanks to another sponsor, Form, who's really helped me out this year. We're going to be doing a giveaway in the lead up to Kona together to get one of you guys in a pair of these goggles. I've made a few reels on my Instagram if you want to learn more about them, about how they integrate with Training Peaks, the Swim Straight feature, which I'm going to be using at Lake Las Vegas, and then also the built-in heart rate monitor, which is my favorite thing, always showing me how I'm going way too hard. But now let's dive into Ibiza T100. What were my main takeaways of that awesome race? I sat on my trainer, didn't get any spoilers, woke up early and just watched the whole thing through. As always, absolutely loved T100's commentary. I thought they did an awesome job, especially on the women's side, where Taylor kind of went away with the race, but they still managed to keep it super interesting, talking about like Ashley Gentle, for example, and giving lots of context. What's going on with her? Will she be able to compete in the future? How does Taylor being in the race affect her? All those kind of things. I think they did an awesome job. A couple things I thought weren't so great. The tracker wasn't working all the time for the men's race, especially early on. They didn't do a great job of telling the context of all the other stories in the race, like where Antonio Benito Lopez, a wildcard, was running through the field, gonna finish in 6th place. I think they missed out on quite a few of those stories, and we didn't get to see any shots basically of the field coming from behind. So that was a bit of a drawback for me. But Other positives from the race, I thought Julie Deron was the big takeaway for me. She looks like the one who is going to challenge Taylor, and I will eat my words because I said after Challenge Beijing, where Paula beat her quite easily there, she was not going to be in form to challenge Taylor, but just a couple weeks later, more time on the TT bike, even gets a 1 minute penalty, doesn't make the front swim group, so she lost a minute there, and sure enough, she is just under 2 minutes back from Taylor at the finish line. Now, Taylor probably had lots more in the gas tank at the end of that race. I just think it's so great, though, that we have somebody who potentially, as she grows into it, could finally challenge her. And a lot of you agree with me on the website in the poll there. And I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments what you thought of Julie's race. Otherwise, India Lee, incredible to come back off of such a bad day at Ironman World Champs for her and then turn it around into one of the best performances we've seen of her. To me, this was more impressive than her win in Miami, where everybody there wasn't in their peak form. So huge kudos to her. Then on the men's side, oh my goodness, Martin Van Riel, what in the world? This guy is literally unbeatable right now in the middle distance. For me, I'm just so excited to see Hayden Wilde step up and challenge him. I think they're very similar. I think Martin's definitely got Hayden on the swim. I think they're really both comparable on the bike, but that's why I'm so excited to see Hayden on a TT bike at this 100K distance. I think he would really thrive like Martin. And then arguably, you'd have to say Hayden's the much better runner. So, if Hayden can make a front pack swim and they can ride together, that would be one of the best run battles. And we will get to see this battle in a Taupo coming up. They're both qualified for that. I just can't wait. But Sam Laidlow gave us enough of a battle all the way to the end. That was so good. I can't believe how well he's running. He said he's really focused on that, ran like 35 days in a row leading into this one, knocked himself out on a street sign in the lead up to this race. Thankfully, he was fine from that. That was a crazy story to hear. But yeah, he's running super well. He's obviously, he said, a little bit concerned about how well Christian ran that marathon at Ironman Frankfurt at a 2:32. So that's motivated him to get his butt into gear. But yeah, he's obviously going to try and have a gap off the bike like he did before. And then yeah, he's in some serious shape right now. So making Kona even more exciting. Otherwise, I think Yuri Kulin, I've got to bring him up. I'm a little bit biased on Yuri. Obviously, you know I'm a big fan. His run was so unbelievable. Like Julie Deron, she had the fastest women's ever run, and beating Ashley Gentle, who said she had one of her best ever runs. But Yuri had one of the second or third fastest run ever, I believe, when I looked it up. He outran Jason West's insane run there last year. So I think if Yuri makes that front pack swim and gets into a pack on the bike, then he can make a real difference come Lake Las Vegas. But that moves us perfectly into Vegas because he was announced as a wild card along with a lot of other strong guys, because a lot of people not racing because of Kona opened up some doors, and some new wild cards are there that I think are going to make a huge difference and will be future T100 competitors, so you need to know their names. First of which, I think Henry Schoeman. Moving on from the Olympics, he has been racing middle distance for quite a while now. I watched him race back in 2022 at the PTO Canadian Open, so he has raced this distance before. I think his bike's going to be his big weakness, but his swimming has run so good. Bronze medal at the Olympics in Rio. This guy's got some serious pedigree, so watch out for him. I know he's pumped for this one. And then otherwise, just this niche leg, I think he is the other guy to really watch here. He's had injuries and issues lately, but he is such another Martin Van Riel who doesn't really have any weaknesses. Nicholas Mann is another guy on this list who's similar to that. He's won some big races. He's like 23 years old, super young. He's going to be a big factor, I think. He's racing a challenge race this weekend, so keep an eye out on how well he does, what form he's in. He's going to be another good one to watch. Yella Gaines, we know, we've seen him in the Pro Series races a couple times already. He's very similar to me, to Henry Schoeman. Got a little bit of a weakness on the bike, but yeah, we know how good he is in the swim and the run. But then Mark Dubrick and Justin Reale, got their US wildcards, and I know both those guys really hope to get a wild card for this race, so I'm stoked for them. And all these guys will be there on the swim, and I think because of that, this race is just going to be wide open, one of the best ones to watch of the year. On the women's side, we've got two Americans, Jackie Herring and Haley Chura. Both raced this distance before. Excited to see them again on home soil. And then Els Visser, surprise, surprise, she is racing again, although she did pull up with an injury after Nice, so not sure if she's actually going to be racing it. But the one I'm super excited for, Carolyn Pohl. You guys know how much of a fan I am of her. Kat Matthews has said how she is really excited to see her racing this distance because she beat Kat back at the European Championships in Tallinn. She outrode Kat there. Carolyn's a real big threat, and I think a future podium contender at this distance. She was sick. She was supposed to race Ibiza, so good to see her going to be racing here again. And then finally, the last one on there you might not have heard is Marlon de Boer. She's had a heck of a season, some great results. I think she's got the skills as well to mix it up. Maybe top 10, I think, at this race for her first one would be really good. From there, other news, there wasn't too much else going on in the week. We did have WTCS Way High happen last weekend, which I did want to bring up because this was World Triathlon's best race I've seen in a long time. T100 should definitely pay attention to this because that hilly course was so fun to watch. It was dramatic. There were breakaways. Alex E dropping Hayden Wild. This is what we need, like the bike course in Ibiza. Watching that race, even for me on my bike, and I'm riveted by this, and I'm like taking notes as I'm watching it. But it still was pretty boring, and I just think of my dad who's into triathlon now, but he still can't sit for 2 hours watching that bike ride. But watching that Way High race, I think anybody could watch that and just be intrigued by it. Like the Tour de France, it's so fun to see all the dynamics happening on a hilly course. So kudos to World Triathlon for pulling that off. If you haven't watched the highlights, highly recommend it. And it made me super excited for their grand final coming up, which is happening during Lake Las Vegas the same weekend. So that's going to be an epic weekend again for watching racing. And Alex E is now the favorite to win it. Hayden Wild as well, still in with a shout. But those two guys have lost the grand final the last 2 years in a row. You never know what can happen. Something always seems to come up, but it looks like this year, really, if they don't pull it off, it would be a massive shock. But on the women's side, you never know. Cassandra Belgrand has been a little bit off in Super League lately. Lisa Tersch pulled off an insane run and win there in Way High, put herself in with contention. Beth Potter's in second place going into that one. World Triathlon definitely improving, and especially their broadcast as well. I really enjoy watching. I think it's competing with T100 right now, and I might get a little bit of flack for that, but I think their commentary is so good. The races are a little bit shorter and more digestible, and yeah, just had to give them a shout out for that. Oh, and speaking of, at that grand final, Julie Deron will be racing that one and not Lake Las Vegas. She hasn't gone completely away from short course just yet. She's doing well in the standings, and with that run of hers right now, she could easily win this one as well. So yeah, pity she won't be at Vegas, but yeah, definitely catch her at that race in Spain. But then other bits of news, we saw Katie Zavira, speaking of short course, she's decided to retire after 11 years in the sport. Did not see that coming, but obviously she's just had a change of heart recently. Since coming back to the sport, she's done incredibly well since doing so, but she didn't make the Paris Olympics, which was her big goal. Huge congrats to her insane career. Joining Javier Gomez as well, who retired in the lead up to Ibiza, which seemed like such a last minute decision thing. He was on that start list for so long, but obviously wasn't able to just get into the shape he needed to be competitive. It was such a bummer for me. I really hoped we'd see him challenge for, you know, Kona or Nice one more time, but yeah, just his body's not cooperating with him anymore. We're losing a lot of legends recently. Sebastian Kienle, Jan, these two, Daniela, of course, and I just hope we can put a pause on that for now. Keep who we've got left in the sport for a little bit longer. But yeah, now I'm just focused on Vegas coming up, the grand final, but more importantly, all about Kona. Big lead up to that race. I hope you guys are excited for this October, November, and December coming up. It's still championship season, probably the longest season of all time in triathlon. And yeah, hopefully you stay with me. We'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.